20 charter buses roll through my open gate onto my private land. 400 tourists pour out into 94-degree heat, cameras ready. Darlene, the HOA president I'm not even in, stands with her megaphone telling them this is a legal heritage tour. She's been doing this for 6 months. 68,000 pocketed from my property. Before that, she spent years forging documents to steal land my grandfather earned at Normandy. I watch every bus cross onto my land, wait until the last tourist steps off. Then I walk to the gate, press the remote, clunk, steel bars slam shut, locked. It takes them 10 seconds to realize. Then the screaming starts. Darlene sprints toward me, mascara already running in the heat, shrieking that I can't do this. I head back to the porch with my coffee. She's about to spend the next 4 hours learning exactly what I can do. What would you do? My name's Hollis Brennan, 52. Spent 25 years as an Army Corps engineer before I inherited 240 acres of Montana ranch land from my grandfather in 2019. Dutch Brennan bought this land in 1947 with money he saved bleeding across France. Normandy to the Rhine, every brutal step. He came home, bought land nobody wanted, rocky, steep, thick with pine, and built something that mattered, not wealth, legacy. The land's got natural hot springs tucked in a valley, hiking trails Dutch carved in the 50s, wildlife corridor that's been undisturbed 70 years. His dying words, "Keep it wild, Hollis. Don't let them pave paradise." I moved back from Seattle to honor that, renovated the 1940s ranch house, run a small timber operation, selective cutting, maybe 12 cords a year, quiet life, splitting wood, tracking elk, reading at sunset. I've got 2 daughters, Ramsey, 29, environmental lawyer, Cleo, 26, paramedic, good kids. Their mother and I divorced amicably in 2018. She kept Seattle. I kept the land I should have come back to years earlier. For a year, it was perfect. Then Pinnacle Ridge Estates broke ground next door, luxury subdivision on 400 acres of old ranch land, 85 lots, homes selling $800,000 to $2 million, faux rustic McMansions with stone facades and 4-car garages. The HOA covenant ran 47 pages, grass height limits, approved paint colors, visual harmony standards. I read it once and laughed until my coffee came out my nose. Then I met Darlene Voss, 58, real estate broker from Connecticut, helmet of hair-sprayed blonde that could survive a tactical strike, pastel blazers, mint green signature color, and a white Escalade with vanity plates reading Presden. Elected HOA president within 6 months, ran unopposed, promised property value protection. What she actually delivered was weaponized bylaws. She fined residents for grass 3.1 inches tall, unapproved mailbox fonts, dogs barking after 9 p.m. People were terrified. Spring 2021, she cornered me at Safeway. I was picking through apples. She materialized like a debt collector. "Your split-rail fence is charming," she said, smiling with too many teeth, "but it clashes with our aesthetic. We'd like you to upgrade to black aluminum. We'll contribute $2,000. I stared. It's been there since 1947. My grandfather built it. Quaint, but Pinnacle Ridge has standards. I'm not in your HOA. Her smile iced over. You could have chilled beer on it. Technically, no. But as neighbors, we expect cooperation. Expect away. Her voice dropped. You'll regret that attitude. Week later, County Inspector Jerry knocked on my door. Anonymous complaint, illegal structures, unpermitted additions, environmental violations. I walked him around. Every building had permits, originals from the 40s in Dutch's fireproof safe. Jerry sighed. Someone's wasting both our time, but I gotta file a report. As he drove off, I spotted Darlene's Escalade parked 200 yards down the road, binoculars on the dashboard, just sitting there, watching. Cost me $3,200 in legal fees to compile permit documentation. My lawyer said, "She's testing you." 2 Pinnacle Ridge residents, Garrett and Simone Ortiz, caught me at the hardware store days later, kept their voices low. "Darlene did this to the guy before you," Garrett said. 47 complaints over 18 months. He sold at a loss. She wanted the land for HOA green space. I looked at him. I'm not the guy before me. That fall, I attended a town council meeting, routine timber permit renewal. Darlene was presenting, all smiles and PowerPoint slides. Glacier View Highway is underutilized. We should partner with tourism operators. Her slideshow included a marked viewpoint, right at my property line. Driving home, I saw a tour bus idling near my fence. Out-of-state plates, tourists photographing my land. Guide's megaphone echoing, "Pristine wilderness, untouched by development." I filed it away. That evening, I stood at Dutch's grave. Small cemetery, Mountain View. Headstone, Dutch Brennan, 1923 to 2019. He kept it wild. Wind moved through the pines, that particular whisper that sounds like old men talking. The air smelled like distance and coming snow, clean in a way cities forget exists. "She doesn't know who she's dealing with, Dutch," I said aloud. "You didn't take orders from Nazis. I'm not taking orders from a woman whose license plate can't spell." Somewhere an elk bugled. The sound carried across the valley, wild and free. I smiled. This was just beginning. Fall 2021, Darlene filed a petition with the county. Official letterhead, legal stamps, the whole show. Petition to recognize historic public easement. Her claim? Townspeople had used a trail across my land for generations to access the hot springs. Sacred community tradition, Montana heritage. She had proof. 3 affidavits from Pinnacle Ridge residents swearing they'd heard from longtime locals about families hiking that trail since the 40s. All 3 signers had moved to Montana in 2020. I checked. She also submitted a photograph, Boy Scout troop camping near the springs, 1982, and a letter from Dutch granting permission. I knew that letter. I'd seen the original. But when I pulled it from the safe, something was wrong. Darlene's version had no date, no phrase saying one-time event. Just Dutch's signature and 2 sentences. Permission granted to use springs, enjoy the land. She'd edited it, digitally cropped out the parts that didn't fit her story. The Glacier Valley Gazette ran it front page. Developer blocks historic community trail? They quoted Darlene in italics, like she was some guardian of the public good. "We just want families to enjoy nature like their grandparents did. Mr. Brennan seems to think he owns the wilderness itself." I read it over breakfast. Burned my tongue on coffee so bad I tasted copper for an hour. Ramsey drove up from Missoula that weekend. My eldest daughter, environmental lawyer, sharp enough to split hairs lengthwise, she spread Darlene's petition across my kitchen table and started laughing. "Dad, look at this photo." I looked. Boy Scouts, campfire, rock formation in the background. "That's not your land," Ramsey said. "See that shelf rock? That's on Pinnacle Ridge Common Area. Different drainage entirely. I pulled the survey maps. She's trying to claim your trail to avoid maintaining hers." Then she held up Dutch's real letter, the one from my safe. "One-time permission granted to Troop 47 for weekend of July 3rd to 5th, 1982. Not to establish precedent or easement. Access is a privilege, not a right." Ramsey grinned. She photoshopped a legal document and filed it with the county. "That's not just fraud, Dad, that's stupid fraud." We hired a surveyor anyway. Guy named Cal, meticulous as a watchmaker. He spent 3 weeks walking every foot of property line with GPS gear that cost more than my truck. The bill was $4,800. His report was 12 pages of technical language that boiled down to Darlene's full of shit. The public trail she referenced was 300 feet east, entirely on HOA land. She'd tried to offload her maintenance costs onto me by claiming my trail was the historical one. Ramsey filed our response. 47 pages, longer than Darlene's petition, just to make a point. Original unedited letter, survey data. Affidavits from 12 people whose families had been here 40-plus years, all saying, "Never heard of public springs access. Dutch was private but fair." The hearing was mid-November. Frost on the courthouse steps, cold enough my breath hung visible. Darlene showed up with a Missoula lawyer in a suit that probably cost $3,000, briefcase that shined like a new penny. The county commissioners, 3 ranchers and a retired school teacher, reviewed everything in silence. 20 minutes. You could hear the wall clock ticking. Finally, petition denied. No credible evidence of historic easement. Petitioner is advised that submitting altered documents may constitute fraud. One of the commissioners, old Frank Tillman, looked straight at Darlene when he said, "Fraud." Let the word hang there. Outside, Darlene caught me by my truck. Her face was scorched red, voice shaking like she was trying not to scream. "You think you've won? I have resources you can't imagine. Family money. Legal budgets that'll bury you in paperwork for years." I kept loading files into my truck bed. Didn't even look at her. "And I have something you'll never have," I said. Actual roots here. People know my family, they don't know you. Enjoy your isolation, hillbilly. She spit the word. When I'm done, you'll beg to sell. I climbed in, started the engine. In the rear view, she just stood there, fists clenched, frozen. That night I sat on the porch with Maker's Mark, Dutch's whiskey of choice because he said expensive bourbon was for people who didn't actually like bourbon. I opened his journal to the 1982 entry. The leather cover had gone soft from his hands over the years, pages thin as onion skin now. Told that scout leader he could use the springs one weekend. Good kids. But I made it clear, this land is a trust, not a commodity. The day I let strangers think they own it, I've failed. I'd read somewhere once, maybe in one of Ramsey's law books she'd left behind, that if you let someone use your land for 20 years straight without challenging them, they can actually claim legal ownership through something called adverse possession. Squatters' rights on steroids. Darlene's tours had been running 18 months. I had plenty of time. But I wasn't planning to wait. Around town, Dale Hutchins mentioned it at the coffee shop. Darlene tried stealing Brennan land with fake documents. County shut her down. Linda from the bakery nodded hard. She fined my son $500 for parking his work truck in his own driveway. Commercial vehicle violation. He's a plumber. People were noticing. But the Pinnacle Ridge folks stayed quiet, too scared. Driving home, I passed 2 tour buses at the pullout. Tourists out with cameras aimed at my land like it was Yellowstone. Guide's megaphone echoing, "Pristine wilderness, a window into Montana's untouched past." I noted the company name painted on the bus, Majestic Montana Tours. The wood smoke from my stove that night smelled sharp and sweet, like victory with a side of warning. Winter turned to spring. Darlene went quiet for a few months. I thought maybe she'd learned. I was wrong. She just changed tactics. If she couldn't legally claim my land, she'd profit from it anyway. March 2022, tour buses started showing up daily. Big 40-foot charter coaches, diesel engines rumbling even at idle. They'd pull into the public pullout right against my fence, and tourists would pour out with cameras like they'd found the Grand Canyon. At first they stayed roadside. Annoying, but legal. Then one morning I was repairing fence and heard laughter from the pullout, the high-pitched excitement of people on vacation who think everything's included in the package. I moved quiet through the pines. Dutch taught me to walk without snapping twigs, and stayed low. What I saw made my jaw clench. A tour guide in a Majestic Montana Tours polo was holding up my barbed wire fence, holding it up, while 30-some tourists ducked through onto my property. "Careful of the wire," she called, cheerful as summer camp. "This is the authentic experience. The owner's old-fashioned, but this land's been shared by the community for generations." Generations. Parroting Darlene's dead easement claim like scripture. They trampled wildflowers, scattered an elk herd, took selfies with my springs. I pulled out my phone, started recording, didn't say a word. The guide never saw me. That night, I pulled county business records for Majestic Montana Tours. 20 minutes online, public information, Delaware Shell Company, standard. But buried in the ownership structure, there she was, Darlene Voss, 30% partner. I sat back, stared at my laptop screen. The math worked itself out in my head without me even trying. Engineer's curse. $60 a head, 40 people per bus, 3 runs a week. She was pulling over $1,000 weekly off my land. 33 grand in 6 months, heading for 68,000 annually. She wasn't harassing me, she was farming me. I called Ramsey. She owns part of the tour company? 30% stake, I said. She's not just trespassing, she's monetizing it. Ramsey went quiet. Then, "Dad, that's commercial exploitation. You can sue for..." "I can do better than sue." By April, I'd posted no trespassing signs every 50 feet. Montana law needs that spacing for charges to stick, something I'd learned during a property dispute case years back when a surveyor friend explained how to properly mark boundaries. 8 trail cameras went up, motion-activated cellular upload, every trespasser time-stamped and sent to my phone. 2 weeks, 15 documented incidents, all deliberate, all guided. Sheriff Chuck's office smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork when I dropped off the complaint. He flipped through my printed evidence, photos fanned across his desk like a poker hand. "Hollis, this is solid," he rubbed his face, "but I've got 2 deputies and 600 square miles. I can't babysit your fence." "Just need it on record, Chuck." He stamped it. "Done. And off the record, Darlene's pissing off the wrong people. Her HOA folks are starting to organize." The tour company updated their website in May. I found it myself this time, couldn't sleep, figured I'd see what lies they were selling. Photos of my hot springs, taken from my land. Marketing, experience Montana's last frontier, walk pioneer trails. New fine print at bottom. Access subject to landowner discretion. Added after my lawyer's cease and desist, no doubt. The damage kept mounting. I photographed everything. Fence section destroyed, 150 feet, 800 to repair. Cigarette butts in elk calving grounds. Beer cans in the creek. Human waste 20 feet from the springs. Cleo visited in June. Found me hammering fence staples for the third time that month. She watched for a minute, then set her coffee down. Dad, you look like hell. I'm fine. You're spending every day fixing what strangers break. You can't win defending. You're an engineer. Build something. That stuck. Same week, town council debated Darlene's scenic byway proposal. Hotel owners loved it. Dale from the hardware store stood up. Bus tourists photograph and leave. We get traffic, not revenue. Garrett Ortiz stood too. I live in Ms. Voss's HOA. Half of us know she's profiting personally from this. It's not about community, it's about her. Darlene's face went crimson. She adjourned early. That night I hiked to the springs under a full moon. Found graffiti carved into Dutch's 1955 pine. Jake plus Emma 2022 in a heart. I sat on Dutch's flat rock. The rock where he taught me to skip stones. Where he'd said, "This is your inheritance, not money. This, protect it." Creek water moving, coyotes calling, springs steaming in cold air. "I'm trying, Dutch," I said aloud. "But she's got lawyers and money and zero shame." A coyote howled back, then silence. Cleo's words echoed. Build something. I thought about my core days, controlling river flow, choke points, letting water through, then closing the gates when you're ready. The question wasn't keeping them out, it was letting them in, then making them wish they'd stayed home. I pulled out my phone, Googled, Montana Property Access Rights 1940s. Found something interesting, something old. I smiled walking back down that mountain. Summer 2022, Darlene made her boldest move yet. She lobbied the county to declare Glacier View Highway a Montana Scenic Byway. Official designation, state tourism marketing, federal recognition. Sounded noble until you read the fine print. Scenic byways required public access viewpoints every 5 miles. Safe pullouts where buses could stop. Tourists could gawk. Instagram could happen. Darlene's proposal included a mandatory viewpoint at exactly one location, where my driveway met the highway. The County Planning Commission scheduled a vote for September, public hearing in August. Darlene stood at the podium in a lavender blazer, hair sprayed into submission, smiling like she'd already won. This viewpoint offers the safest pullout and most stunning views in the entire corridor. Mr. Brennan's driveway intersection is perfect. Ample space, minimal traffic impact. He's one property owner. We're talking about our region's economic future. Translation: she wanted legal protection for her tour buses to park at my property line 8 hours a day. I sat in the back, didn't say a word, just listened. That night I couldn't sleep. 2 a.m. I gave up and pulled Dutch's original deed from the safe. The paper was thick, yellowed like old bone, edges soft from decades in that fireproof box. I'd read it 100 times, but this time I actually read it. There was a section in the property description I'd always skimmed over. Legal language from 1947, the kind that makes your eyes glaze, including all rights of ingress and egress where said property meets U.S. Highway 2, including control of approach strip extending 20 feet north and south of center line of access point. And I read it 3 times, then I called Ramsey at 7 a.m. She answered groggy, "Dad, it's Saturday." "Listen to this." I read the passage. Silence. Then I heard her sit up. "Say that again. The approach strip part." I read it slower. "Holy shit," she said. "Dad, that's a pre-interstate provision. Before the feds standardized highway access in 1956, landowners sometimes owned the approach, the strip where their driveway met the road. It was their property, not public right-of-way. In English? You might own a 40-foot section of what looks like public highway, which means you could gate it. The words hung there. "Could," I said, "or do." "Let me make some calls." She contacted a property law professor she'd studied under. He got excited. Apparently these old provisions are rare as hen's teeth now. Most got condemned or purchased by states during highway expansions. But Montana was slow to update rural roads, Ramsey explained on our next call. And your grandfather's deed predates the change. If the county never formally condemned or bought that approach strip, it's still yours. How do I prove it? Survey. Modern one, confirming 1947 boundaries. I hired Cal again. Same surveyor, same meticulous work. This time it cost $4,800 and I didn't even blink. Money well spent if it meant what I thought it meant. 3 weeks later, Cal handed me a report with maps that looked like they belonged in a museum and a courtroom simultaneously. This is a unicorn, Hollis, he said, tapping the highlighted section. Your approach strip is intact. County widened the highway in 1963, but they went east of your property. Never touched your access point. You own it. All of it. I stared at the map. A 40-foot strip of asphalt I'd driven over 10,000 times thinking it was public road. It wasn't. It was mine. Ramsey filed a notice of intent with the county clerk on September 1st. Official paperwork. Notice of intent to exercise private access control rights per deed, 1947-MT-392. Public record. Anyone could see it. Darlene saw it within 48 hours. She showed up at my house unannounced. Didn't knock. Just laid on the horn until I came out. I walked to her Escalade. She had the window down, holding a printed copy of my filing. Her hand was shaking. This is bullshit. I leaned against her door. Casual. Which part? You can't block a highway. I'm not blocking the highway. I'm controlling my approach strip. The highway's 10 feet west. Totally accessible. I will sue you into the ground. You're welcome to try. My lawyer's cheaper than yours. I smiled. And she's my daughter, so she works weekends. Her face went from red to purple. The county needs that viewpoint for the scenic byway. Then put it somewhere else. You've got 5 miles of highway. Pick a different spot. She sat there, engine running, breathing hard through her nose, like a bull deciding whether to charge. This isn't over, she finally said. Never thought it was. I stepped back. She peeled out, gravel spraying. The county commission met 2 weeks later. The scenic byway proposal passed, but the mandatory viewpoint got moved 2 miles east. Different landowner who'd negotiated a payment from the tourism board. Darlene's plan for legal protection at my driveway, dead. But her tours kept running. She still had revenue, still had her business, still had 6 months until her debts caught up with her. I didn't know that part yet. That discovery would come later. What I knew was this. I had a legal right to gate my approach. I'd filed my intent. Darlene knew I could act, but I didn't build anything. Not yet, because I'd learned something from watching her. She was impatient, desperate. She'd pushed too hard on the easement, lost. Pushed too hard on the scenic byway, lost again. If I installed a gate now, she'd have months to prepare, lawyer up, find loopholes. Better to let her think the filing was just paperwork, just me covering legal bases. Let her keep running tours, keep getting comfortable, keep counting that money. And when the moment was right, when she was most exposed, most confident, most committed, then I'd spring the trap. The local newspaper ran a story. Landowner exercises century-old property right. Patricia Mail, the editor, had done her homework, interviewed the property law professor, explained the history, presented both sides. Comments section exploded. Half the town, good for him, it's his land. Other half, selfish hoarder blocking economic growth. Dale caught me at the hardware store. You've got more support than you think. We're just quieter than Darlene's people. I bought a spool of high-tensile wire, some fence staples, a few 2x4s. Dale rang me up, didn't ask what it was for. You need help installing anything, he said. You let me know. Appreciate it, Dale. I loaded everything into my truck, drove home, didn't use any of it, not yet. That evening I walked the property line at sunset. The approach strip, my approach strip, sat there innocent as could be, just asphalt, just a driveway. But I was seeing it different now, not as access, as a gate, a 40-foot choke point where 20 buses could fit bumper to bumper, trapped between my land and a bridge ahead that couldn't hold their weight. I stood there until the stars came out. The September air had that first edge of cold. Elk were bugling up on the ridge, that sound that's half scream, half song. Dutch used to say you could tell a lot about a man by how patient he could be. Germans thought they had patience, he'd told me once. Dug in for winter, but we had more, waited till spring. Then we moved. I wasn't moving yet, but I was ready. October 2022, leaves turning gold and the tourist season winding down. Darlene's buses still running, but less frequently now. 3 times a week instead of daily. Ramsey came up for the weekend. Brought her laptop, said she wanted to work remote, enjoy the quiet. But Saturday morning over coffee, she got that look. The one that meant she'd found something. "Dad, I need to show you something." She spread financial documents across my kitchen table. Public records, business filings, loan documents, all stuff you can pull if you know where to look and have a lawyer's access to databases. "I was preparing defensive research," she said, "in case Darlene sues over the approach strip, so I pulled everything on Majestic Montana Tours." She pointed to a loan document. "The company owes $340,000. Equipment loans, bus leases, operating capital, and they're 90 days behind on payments." I looked at the numbers. 90 days behind means default notices, creditors circling. She pulled up another page. "And look who personally guaranteed the loans." Darlene's signature, right there in blue ink. "If the company goes under," Ramsey said, "creditors can come after her personal assets, house, car, bank accounts." Then she showed me the HOA documents. Pinnacle Ridge had taken out a $1.2 million bond in 2021. Community improvements, clubhouse, landscaping, that ridiculous monument sign at the entrance. "Bond payments due March 2023, Ramsey said. 6 months from now, $180,000. Can they cover it? She showed me the HOA budget. Public record, has to be disclosed to homeowners. They've got $31,000 in reserves. They're short $149,000. I sat back. How's Darlene covering this? She's not. She's hoping. Ramsey pulled up a spreadsheet she'd built. "Look, tour company brings in about $50,000 monthly during peak season. Darlene's 30% cut is $15,000, but operating costs eat most of that. She's barely staying afloat." She tapped the screen. "If tours stop for even 2 weeks during peak season next summer, the company can't cover loan payments. Default, bankruptcy, creditors seize everything. And without her tour income, she can't secretly funnel money to cover the HOA bond gap." The picture came together. Darlene wasn't just greedy, she was drowning. Her ex-husband had taken half their assets in the divorce. She'd overextended on the tour company. She'd probably used her HOA position to push through that bond, thinking she could make the budget work. Now she was trapped. The tours weren't about harassing me. They were about survival. "She needs next summer's tour season," I said. "Desperately. June through August is when she makes 70% of annual revenue. If something disrupted that, she collapses." Ramsey nodded. "Company folds, personal bankruptcy, HOA bond defaults, and she's liable as the president who signed it. She'd lose everything." I thought about that. Part of me felt something almost like sympathy. Then I remembered her screaming hillbilly at me, remembered forged documents, remembered tourists trampling Dutch's land while guides lied about community tradition. The sympathy evaporated. "When's peak season start?" I asked. "Mid-June. Biggest corporate bookings are 3rd week of June. I saw one on the tour company's site, Synergy Solutions, some tech company retreat. 20 buses, 400 people, $72,000 gross revenue." Darlene's cut? $21,600. Single biggest payday of her year. I looked out the window. Snow already dusting the high peaks. 6 months until June. "What if those 20 buses showed up," I said slowly, "and couldn't deliver what they promised?" Ramsey leaned back. Synergy would demand a refund, probably sue for breach of contract. And Darlene? Probably already spent the deposit. She'd owe money she doesn't have. Company folds. She's done. We sat quiet for a minute. Coffee getting cold. "I could just sue her now," I said. "Commercial trespass, damages, years of harassment." "You could. Might win. Might take 3 years and cost you $40,000 in legal fees. Or?" Ramsey smiled, looked just like Dutch when he'd figured out a solution to a problem. "Or you let her commit to that 20 bus payday. Let her spend the deposit. Let her promise 400 people access to land she doesn't control. And then? Then you remind her what a property line actually means." I thought about Dutch, about Normandy, about men who had patience to wait for the right moment. "I'm not doing this for revenge," I said. "I know. It's about the land, protecting what Dutch built. I know that too, Dad. But we both knew revenge was part of it. Justice and revenge aren't always different things. That night I sat on the porch with Maker's Mark. The stars were out, sky clear and cold. I could see my breath. Somewhere in Connecticut or wherever she'd come from, Darlene probably thought she was safe, thought her lawyer and her money and her title made her untouchable. She had no idea she was standing on a trap that hadn't sprung yet. I raised the glass to the mountains. Patience, Dutch, I said, just like you taught me. The wind answered. November 2022. First real snow came and the tour buses stopped running. Off-season. Darlene's revenue stream dried up until spring, which gave me 6 months to build. I'd been an engineer for 25 years, designed bridges, dams, flood control systems. The Army Corps taught me to think in terms of flow, pressure points, controlled release. This wasn't so different. The concept was simple. My approach strip was a choke point, 40 feet of private land that looked like public road. If I put a gate there, I could control vehicle access to my entire property. But timing mattered. Close the gate too early, buses wouldn't enter. Too late, they might scatter. I needed them committed. All of them. Trapped between my property and that weight-limited bridge a quarter-mile ahead. I started with the engineering, pulled out old CAD software, still had my license from Corps days, and modeled the approach. Measured everything. Gate width, 16 feet, wide enough for my truck but requiring buses to enter single file. Height, 7 feet, enough to prevent climbing. Material, steel, industrial grade. Foundation was critical. Montana frost line goes 4 feet deep. Posts had to go deeper or they'd heave come spring. I designed concrete pylons, 4.5 feet down, reinforced with rebar. Locking mechanism, 3 layers. Remote-controlled motor, solar-powered. Manual backup padlock, sliding bolt for redundancy. If one failed, I had 2 others. I ordered materials through Dale. He didn't ask questions. Just wrote up the order. Steel gate, concrete, rebar, solar panel, remote motor assembly. Need help installing? He asked. I've got it, he nodded. You need anything else, you call. Total cost, $6,200. Money I'd saved for a new roof. The roof could wait. January through March, I worked alone. Didn't want attention, didn't want Darlene hearing about construction. The ground was frozen solid until late February. I rented a gas-powered auger, spent 3 days drilling post holes. Hands blistered even through gloves, back aching. But it was good work. Honest work. Poured concrete in stages. Let it cure proper, 2 weeks between pours. Dutch had taught me you don't rush concrete. Weak foundation, weak everything, he used to say. Installed the gate in early March. Steel frame, powder-coated black. Heavy enough that hanging it took a whole day and a come-along winch. The motor went in last. Solar panel mounted on a pole 20 feet away. Wire buried underground. Remote control synced to my phone. One touch button. Close gate. I tested it 50 times. Open, close, lock, unlock. 8 seconds to close. Smooth motor hum. Then clunk. That beautiful sound of steel bolts sliding home. Perfect. By April, I had 12 cameras covering the approach and property. Motion sensors, night vision, cellular upload. If a squirrel crossed my land, I'd know. I practiced the timing. Had Cleo drive her pickup through the approach at different speeds. I'd wait until she was past the gate threshold, then hit close. Needed 37 seconds minimum between last vehicle entering and gate closing. Any faster, safety risk. Any slower, vehicle might not be fully committed. 37 seconds. I could do that in my sleep. The legal side I'd already covered. Ramsey had prepared a memo documenting everything. My deed rights, Montana access law, emergency service compliance. Sheriff Chuck knew. County clerk had my filing on record. I wasn't breaking any laws. I was exercising property rights that had existed since 1947. Late April, I briefed Dale over coffee at his shop. Something's going to happen June 18th, I said. It'll be loud, messy. Darlene's going to call the sheriff screaming. Just want you to know ahead of time. Dale sipped his coffee. You doing anything illegal? No. Anybody getting hurt? No. Then I don't need to know more. He set down his cup. But if you need anything that day, anything at all, you call. Sheriff Chuck, I told directly, went to his office first week of May. Chuck, June 18th, I'm going to exercise my property rights. There'll be tour buses involved. It'll be messy. Darlene will call you. He leaned back. You breaking laws? No. Endangering anyone? No. Inconveniencing? Yes. Endangering? No. He smiled. Then I'll respond when I respond. Might take me a while. Lot of road to cover that day. I shook his hand. Appreciate it. Garrett Ortiz. I ran into at the grocery store mid-May. He pulled me aside between the produce and dairy. Something's happening, he said quietly. I can feel it. Half the HOA's ready to vote Darlene out. We just need a reason, something public. June 18th, I said. Keep your calendar open. What's happening? You'll know it when you see it. Just be ready to move fast. He studied me, then nodded. We'll be ready. My daughters came up Memorial Day weekend. I showed them the gate. Cleo walked around it, testing the steel. Dad, you built a trap. I built a gate. Semantics. She looked at me. You're really doing this? I'm really doing this. Ramsey had her lawyer face on. If this goes south, call me immediately. It won't go south. Call me anyway. We spent that weekend stocking my house like I was preparing for siege. Water, sandwiches, first aid kit. Cleo's idea. She'd been a paramedic long enough to think about contingencies. You'll be out there for hours, she said. Stay hydrated. Stay calm. I hugged them both before they left. June crept closer. I checked the gate daily, tested the motor, verified cameras, reviewed the timing. 37 seconds. I could do it. June 17th, I walked the property one last time. Stood at the approach strip, my approach strip, and looked at the gate. It stood open, waiting. Tomorrow, 20 buses would roll through, 400 tourists, one desperate woman who'd spent 2 years trying to steal my land. And I'd teach every single one of them what a property line actually meant. I went to bed early, slept better than I had in months. Early June 2023, Darlene's tour company started advertising heavy. Facebook ads, Instagram posts, email blasts to corporate event planners. I knew because Garrett forwarded me a screenshot. The ad showed my hot springs, my property, with text, book your Montana adventure before access changes, limited availability for premium corporate retreats. She was creating urgency, scarcity marketing, because she knew something had shifted and she needed to cash in fast. June 5th, Garrett sent me another message, just 2 words and a PDF attachment. Holy shit. I opened it. Synergy Solutions Corporate Retreat Itinerary. 400 employees and families. 20 charter buses. June 18th. Premium package, $180 per person. $72,000 gross. Darlene's 30%, $21,600. The itinerary was detailed, professionally designed. Color photos of my land throughout. 9:30 a.m. Depart hotel, arrive Montana. Hot Springs private reserve, like she owned it. 10 a.m. Guided nature walk on historic pioneer trails. My trails, Dutch's trails. 11:30 a.m. Exclusive access to natural hot springs, photography opportunities. My springs. 12:30 p.m. Catered lunch on site. My site. The marketing language made my teeth hurt. Experience authentic Montana wilderness on a private historic ranch preserved for generations. Walk where pioneers walked. See untouched natural beauty. Everything was a lie except the untouched part, and she was fixing to touch it. I called Ramsey. She's selling access like she owns it. That's fraud, Dad, promising services she can't deliver. Or, I said, I let her deliver exactly what she promised. Access to my land. Then I control how long they stay. Ramsey was quiet a second. You're really going to trap 400 people. I'm really going to enforce my property rights. Call me if anything goes sideways. June 10th, Darlene tried one last negotiation. Her Escalade pulled into my driveway, uninvited as always. She got out wearing a practiced smile and a pale yellow blazer that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. I was on the porch, didn't stand up. She walked halfway to the steps, stopped there like she'd hit an invisible wall. Hollis, let's be adults about this. I sipped my coffee, said nothing. I have a corporate event on the 18th. 400 people. I'm prepared to pay you $5,000 for 1 day access to your turnaround area, just for parking. No. 10,000. Cash. No. The smile started cracking. You're being unreasonable. These are families, children. You'd ruin their vacation out of spite? You're selling access to land you don't own. That's fraud. I don't negotiate with criminals. Her mask dropped completely. Voice went cold and hard. I've already been paid, Hollis. Synergy gave me a 50% deposit. $36,000. If I cancel, I have to refund it. Money I don't have. So those buses are coming, and if you interfere, I will sue you for tortious interference with business relationships. I set down my coffee, looked at her straight. Looking forward to it. She stood there, breathing hard, fists clenched. Then she turned and walked back to her Escalade, peeled out spraying gravel. I watched her go. She'd already spent the deposit. She was committed, trapped by her own greed. Perfect. The next week I spent in routine, split firewood, checked the gate, tested cameras, lived normal, but inside I was counting down. June 15th, Synergy Solutions posted on LinkedIn. 3 days until our Montana team-building adventure. Can't wait to experience those natural hot springs. Comments rolled in, employees excited, families packing hiking boots. None of them knew they were about to become pawns in someone else's property dispute. I almost felt bad for them. Almost. June 16th, I got a text from Dale. Whatever you're doing tomorrow, good luck. From Chuck. I'll be patrolling the North County all day tomorrow. Might take a while to get to calls from your area. From Garrett. HOA board is ready. We've got the votes. Just need the catalyst. Everything aligned. That evening, I sat on the porch with Dutch's journal. Read the entry from June 1944, day before D-Day. Tomorrow we hit the beach. Some of us won't make it, but we're going anyway because some things are worth fighting for. Not glory, not medals, just the right to go home and live free on our own land. That's all any man should need. I closed the journal. Tomorrow I wasn't storming a beach, just closing a gate, but the principle was the same. My land, my rules. I went to bed at 10, set my alarm for 6, slept like a stone. June 18th. 0:30. The alarm went off, but I was already awake. Made coffee, sat on the porch watching the sky lighten. Weather forecast. Clear, sunny, high of 94. Perfect. 6 a.m. I checked the gate one last time, opened it wide, cameras online, phone charged, app open. The one-touch close gate button sat there on my screen, waiting. I made a second pot of coffee, stronger this time. Then I sat in my rocking chair and waited. 7:30, the first text came, from Garrett. Buses just left the hotel, ETA to you, 9:30. I texted back, Roger. 8:15. I heard them before I saw them. That diesel rumble, 20 engines running in convoy. The sound got louder, closer. I stood up, walked to the porch rail, phone in my hand. 8:45, the first bus appeared on the highway, then another, 20 buses. Rolling toward me like a slow-motion invasion. The lead bus slowed, turn signal on. It turned onto my approach strip, my land. I counted them through the camera feeds. 1, 2, 3. Darlene was on bus number 4. I could see her through the windshield. Clipboard, headset. Smiling. She thought she'd won. 10, 11, 12. Tourists starting to exit the buses. Stretching, looking around, taking pictures. Kids running. Parents calling after them. 18, 19. Bus 20 turned onto my property. I waited. Counted in my head. 1, 2, 3, 37 seconds. 3. The last tourist stepped off bus 20. Darlene was standing near bus 1, megaphone in hand, about to address the crowd. I tapped my phone screen. Close gate. 8 seconds. The motor hummed. The steel gate swung smoothly across the approach strip. Clunk. Locked. For maybe 5 seconds, nobody noticed. Then a bus driver tried to leave, saw the gate, radioed someone. Word spread. Darlene's head snapped toward the gate. I watched her face change. Confusion, understanding, rage. She started running toward my house. I sat back down in my rocking chair, picked up my coffee, and smiled. The screaming started before Darlene even reached the gate. Not from her yet, from the tourists. Confusion rippling through the crowd like a shockwave. 400 people realizing simultaneously that the exit had closed. Why is there a gate? We can't get out? Is this part of the tour? Darlene sprinted across the gravel in heels, impressive and stupid simultaneously. She hit the gate at full speed, grabbed the steel bars, started shaking them. Open this! Open this right now! Her voice was already hoarse. The megaphone worked, probably. Now it was shredding to pieces. I stayed on my porch, sipped coffee, watched. She spun around looking for me, spotted me sitting there calm as Sunday morning. Hollis Brennan! Screaming now, full volume. You open this gate or I swear to God. I picked up my PA speaker, turned it on, spoke calm and clear. Good morning. You are currently on private property. The tour operator did not have permission to bring you here. I am exercising my legal right to control access to my land. You are not in danger. You are not permanently trapped. You may exit through the pedestrian gate at any time. I pointed to the small door set into the main gate. Unlocked. Human-sized. The buses will remain here until I decide otherwise. I estimate 3 to 4 hours. Please stay calm. There's shade under those pines if you need it. I apologize for the inconvenience. The reaction was chaos. Some tourists laughed nervously, thought it was a prank. Others got angry immediately. This is ridiculous. Parents grabbed kids. We're leaving. Now. About 60 people headed straight for the pedestrian gate, walked out, started the long hike back to the highway. But 340 stayed, either curious, stubborn, or waiting to see what happened. The bus drivers gathered in a cluster, radios out, calling dispatch. One driver, older guy, professional, approached my fence, called out calm. Sir, we've got families here. Kids, elderly passengers. We need to leave. You're welcome to leave on foot, I called back. The vehicles stay. How long? Until I'm satisfied. He didn't look happy, but he nodded, went back to brief the others. Darlene was still at the gate, makeup starting to run in the heat, hairspray helmet collapsing strand by strand. She'd stopped screaming, which somehow felt more dangerous. 9:45. Temperature already 82 and climbing. The buses idled for a few minutes, AC running, then one by one the drivers shut them down. Conserving fuel. Without the engine noise you could hear everything. Kids whining, adults complaining, the low murmur of 300 people realizing their vacation just derailed. 10 a.m. Darlene's phone rang. She answered. Even from the porch I could hear the yelling from the other end. She turned away, voice low and urgent. Couldn't make out words, but the body language was clear. Damage control failing. 10:15, a news van pulled up on the highway. KXMT Missoula, reporter and cameraman. I'd been wondering when media would show. The reporter, woman in her 30s, professional, sharp, approached the gate with her cameraman, started filming. She called to me. Mr. Brennan, Jenna Torres, KXMT, can we get a statement? I walked to the fence, stayed on my side. I'm protecting my property from commercial exploitation. The tour operator, I gestured to Darlene, was notified months ago she did not have permission to use this land. She proceeded anyway, committing fraud against her clients by selling access she didn't have. I'm exercising my legal right to control access. Everyone can leave on foot. The buses remain until I'm satisfied. How long will that be? As long as it takes. I pointed to the cameras mounted on posts. I have 6 months of documented evidence. Trespassing, property damage, commercial exploitation. All time-stamped, all backed up. This ends today. Jenna turned to Darlene. Ms. Voss, do you have a response? Darlene's face was a ruin. Makeup streaked, hair wild, sweat stains blooming dark on her blazer. This is illegal imprisonment. He's holding 400 people hostage. Ma'am, are people free to leave on foot? Darlene sputtered. That's not, they can't just, so they can leave? The buses are on his private property without permission, Jenna said. Not mean, just factual. Darlene looked like she'd been slapped. The camera kept rolling. 10:30, Sheriff Chuck pulled up, took his time getting out, surveyed the scene with the expression of a man who'd seen this coming. Darlene ran to him. Sheriff, arrest him. False imprisonment, reckless endangerment. Chuck held up a hand. Ma'am, slow down. He walked to the gate, looked at the buses, looked at the tourists milling around, checked the pedestrian gate, unlocked, people flowing through. Then he pulled out his PA. "Folks, if anyone has a medical emergency, wave me down. Otherwise, you're free to leave on foot. This is a property dispute, not a public safety issue." Darlene grabbed his arm. "It's not a dispute. It's a crime." Chuck gently removed her hand. "Ma'am, he owns the land. He can lock his gate. Your bus is trespassed. That's civil, not criminal. I have a contract with your clients, not with him." Chuck gestured to me. "Y'all need to work it out." He walked back to his cruiser, sat in the shade, waited. Darlene stood there, alone in the sun, breathing hard. 11 a.m., 90 degrees. The buses sat silent, baking metal. The smell of hot asphalt and diesel hung thick. Tourists had claimed every shaded spot, kids crying, adults on phones calling rides, anger mixing with resignation. And then, the moment I'd been waiting for. A man in a suit emerged from bus 7, mid-40s, tie loosened but still wearing it despite the heat. He walked straight to Darlene, Marcus Lyle, Synergy Solutions 5P of Operations. I'd seen his face on the company website Garrett had sent me. His voice carried across the distance. "Ms. Voss, explain." Darlene turned. Her face went white. "Marcus, it's not my fault. He locked—" "You guaranteed exclusive access. You said this land was reserved for our event. It was supposed to be. Marcus pulled out his phone, put it on speaker, called someone. "Legal? Marcus Lyle. We need to discuss breach of contract. Vendor failed to deliver services as specified. What's our recourse?" A tinny voice. "Full refund plus penalty clause if services aren't rendered." Marcus looked at Darlene. "You owe us $108,000. You have 48 hours. Darlene's legs actually buckled. She caught herself on a bus bumper. I can't. The money's..." "Then we'll see you in court." Marcus walked away, back to the shade. Darlene slid down to sit on the ground. Just sat there, staring at nothing. Her phone rang. She didn't answer. Rang again. Didn't answer. 11:30. 92 degrees. I went inside, made a sandwich, came back out. Still there. All of them. Trapped by their own presence. Noon approached. Peak heat coming. Noon hit like a hammer. 94 degrees and the sun directly overhead. No mercy. The buses sat silent. Dark metal baking. Heat shimmer rising off the roofs in visible waves. 340 tourists, the ones who'd stayed, were scattered across every patch of shade, under pines, against the north side of buses, anywhere the sun wasn't direct. Kids had stopped crying, just lay in their parents' laps, limp and miserable. The smell was getting bad, diesel exhaust, human sweat, hot asphalt. Desperation has a scent, and this was it. Darlene hadn't moved from where she'd collapsed by bus 7, sitting in dirt, blazer filthy, hair completely destroyed. She'd stopped answering her phone an hour ago. 12:15, one of the bus drivers approached my fence. Big guy, professional, trying to keep calm. "Sir, we've got elderly passengers, diabetics, kids. We're running low on water. Can we at least get supplies in?" "Pedestrian gates open," I said. "Anyone who wants to leave can go get water and come back. The buses, stay until I'm satisfied." He looked at me, not angry, just tired. "How long?" "You've been here 2.5 hours. Give it another 90 minutes. He nodded, walked back. I'd decided that morning, 4 hours total. Enough to make the point, not enough to actually endanger anyone. 4 hours in the heat would ruin Synergy's event, destroy Darlene's reputation, cost her everything. That was enough. 12:30, more media arrived, 2 more news vans, a newspaper photographer. They set up on the highway side, filmed the buses, the miserable tourists, Darlene sitting broken in the dirt. One reporter got a statement from Marcus Lyle. "We paid $72,000 for an exclusive wilderness experience. Instead, we're trapped on private property without permission. Our employees and their families are suffering in extreme heat. This is unacceptable. We will pursue full legal action against Majestic Montana Tours." Another reporter interviewed tourists. "This is the worst vacation disaster I've ever experienced. My kids are dehydrated and terrified. That woman," pointing to Darlene, "promised us something she couldn't deliver. This is fraud." Every word, every camera angle, every miserable face. Darlene's business dying in real time. 12:45, Patricia Meal from the Gazette arrived. She'd been waiting for this. I'd told her something was coming. She walked to my porch. I invited her onto my property. Hollis, hell of a thing you've done here. Just enforcing property rights. She pulled out a notebook. I'm running a full story tomorrow. Want to give me the background? I handed her a USB drive. 6 months of trespassing documentation. Financial records showing Darlene's ownership stake in the tour company. Timeline of harassment. Copies of forged documents from the easement attempt. It's all there. She looked at the drive. This goes live tomorrow morning. Good. She looked at the scene. Buses, tourists, Darlene. You know you're going to be the villain to a lot of people. And the hero to others. Can't please everyone. She smiled. No, you can't. 1 p.m. peak heat, 94 degrees exactly. I stood up, stretched, picked up my PA. Attention, I am now opening the gate. Please proceed safely and leave my property immediately. Do not return. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen. Open gate, 8 seconds, motor whir. The gate swung wide. For about 3 seconds, nobody moved, like they couldn't believe it. Then chaos. Bus engines roaring to life simultaneously. 20 diesel motors, deafening, drivers scrambling, tourists running for buses. The convoy lurched forward in desperate disorder, buses cutting each other off, horns blaring. One bus nearly sideswiped another, driver screaming out the window. 8 minutes. That's how long it took for all 20 buses to clear my property. A rolling disaster of a retreat. The dust hung in the air after they'd gone. Thick and choking. Silence settled. I looked at the approach strip. My approach strip. Empty now except for trash they'd left. Water bottles, candy wrappers. I'd clean it later. Darlene's Escalade was still there, parked on the public road. She was sitting in the driver's seat, engine off, just sitting. I watched her for a minute, then she started the car, pulled away slow, didn't look back. I sat back down in my rocking chair, picked up my now cold coffee. The news vans were packing up, reporters doing final stand-ups with my property in the background. Sheriff Chuck walked over. Well, that was something. That it was. You know she's going to sue you. Let her try. He smiled, tipped his hat. Have a good day, Hollis. You too, Chuck. He left. I sat alone on my porch. The elk would come back in a few days. The land would settle. And Darlene Voss would never set foot on my property again. 4 hours, 400 people, 20 buses, 1 locked gate. Sometimes that's all it takes to prove a point. I raised my cold coffee to the mountains. We kept it wild, Dutch, I said. The wind moved through the pines, sounded like approval. The next morning, Patricia's story ran front page. HOA President's Secret Business Empire, Fraud, Trespassing, and Financial Collapse. The photos told it all. Darlene screaming at my gate, tourists wilting in heat, Marcus Lyle's face when he terminated the contract. The article laid out everything. Her ownership stake, 6 months of trespassing evidence, the forged easement documents, the financial house of cards. By noon, every Montana outlet had picked it up. Darlene resigned as HOA president that afternoon. 1-line email, effective immediately. June 22nd, Majestic Montana Tours filed bankruptcy. Creditors got pennies on the dollar. July 2nd, Darlene filed personal bankruptcy. Escalade repossessed. House listed underwater. August 3rd, Garrett texted me a photo. Darlene loading a U-Haul alone, moving back to Connecticut. I looked at that photo for a long time. Didn't feel triumphant. Didn't feel sorry either. Just felt done. Synergy sued the tour company, won a default judgment. $108,000. Uncollectible, but on record. The county reviewed her easement petition, referred it for fraud investigation. No charges filed, but permanent black mark. She was finished in Montana. July 1st, Pinnacle Ridge held emergency elections. Garrett won HOA president with 71%. First act, rescind every petty fine Darlene had issued, returned $34,000 to residents nickel and dimed for grass height and mailbox colors. Second act, full financial audit, found $78,000 in consulting fees paid to Darlene's personal LLC. Likely embezzlement, but statute expired. They let it go. Just wanted her gone. Mid-July, Garrett came to my house, knocked instead of honking. Hollis, we want to make amends. I offered iced tea. We sat on the porch. Your grandfather was a veteran. We'd like to establish a scholarship in his name for students studying environmental science or land management. How much? $50,000 endowment, $2,500 annually to 2 students. I thought about Dutch, what he'd value. He believed in education and stewardship. He'd like that. The first Dutch Brennan Memorial Scholarship was awarded spring 2024. Ramsey presented it, 18-year-old ranch kid studying watershed management. I shook his hand. Make it count. Yes, sir. Dutch would have been proud. September 2023, I donated 40 acres to the county, the section with the hot springs. Conditions, nature preserve, no commercial tours ever, foot traffic only, maintained by volunteers. Wildlife sanctuary. Named it the Dutch Brennan Wildlife Corridor. Dedication ceremony drew 200 people. Dale spoke. Hollis could have been bitter. Instead, he gave us a gift. This is real stewardship. Ramsey's voice cracked. My great-grandfather would be proud. This land stays wild forever. I kept it short. Dutch taught me land isn't property, it's responsibility. Today we share that. After people hiked the trails, kids splashed in the creek, elk grazed unbothered. The land was healing. Ramsey moved back that fall, opened her practice above Dale's hardware store. Environmental law, property rights. First client, farmer fighting eminent domain. She won. She visits every Sunday for dinner now. Cleo brings my grandkids, Finn and Mara, every summer. I teach them what Dutch taught me, reading tracks, identifying birds, respecting land. Mara asked once, why did that mean lady try to take our land? She forgot you can't own wild things, only protect them. Did you protect it? I tried. Now we all protect it together. September 2024, first annual Stewardship Day, third Saturday. Community volunteers maintaining trails, removing invasives, monitoring wildlife. 120 showed, locals and Pinnacle Ridge families working side by side. I pulled knapweed next to Garrett. Simone ran tools, Dale brought lunch. Real community, not forced by HOA rules, just people caring because it mattered. Spring 2025, coffee shop, morning routine. Overheard the next table, elderly farmer, Carl, talking. Valley County HOA wants my farm for a golf course, threatening eminent domain. Our eyes met. You're Hollis Brennan. I am. Heard what you did. Got time for coffee? We sat. He told me everything. HOA pressure, captured town council, threats. I pulled out a notepad. First, survey your deed. Second, document everything. Third, my daughter's a property rights lawyer. She'll help. His eyes got wet. Why help me? Dutch taught me, when you see a bully, you don't look away. We talked an hour. Later, I called Ramsey. Got a client for you. She laughed. You starting a service? Just keeping the faith. That evening at Dutch's grave, sunset turning mountains gold, I said it aloud. We did it. Lands protected, scholarships running, people are learning. Wind through pines, that particular whisper. I smiled, turned back. Behind me, the preserve, hikers, kids laughing, elk grazing. Ahead, ranch house, light in windows, home. The gate stood open, always open now. The threat was gone. I looked at the mountains, breathed clean air, heard the creek. Worth it? Yeah, it was worth it.
Look, Hollis spent 2 years getting pushed around by someone who thought a title and an HOA handbook made her untouchable. And you know what finally stopped it? An audit from 1947 with language nobody remembers existed. A 40-foot approach chief that looked like public road, but wasn't. She never even checked, just assumed. Kept selling tools, pocketing that 30%, thinking he'd eventually give up. But Hollis is an engineer, 25 years with the Army Corps. You don't build bridges by rushing, you measure. You wait for the right moment. June 18th, 20 buses, 400 people, 94 degrees, and one steel gate that took 8 seconds to close. That's all it took. I think about that sometimes, how much damage people like that do because nobody pushes back. Most folks just fight the fight, sell the land, whatever, because fighting feels impossible. But it's not. It just requires patience and reading the damn paperwork. Now there's a wildlife reserve where the buses used to trespass. a scholarship for local kids, and Dallas back in Connecticut alone. So here's my question. Have you dealt with someone like this? HOA president who mistake authority for actual power? Drop it in the comment. These stories are everywhere. If this means something to you, hit like, subscribe for more. And if you know someone dealing with HOA overreach, send them this. Sometimes all it takes is seeing someone else did it first. Thanks for watching.